What is everybody? Good evening. Welcome to The Transparency. I will be your host. Welcome. Make yourself known at some point. Hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down. You're going to have an opinion. Please don't be a fence rider. Also, feel free to use the live chat if you are watching this live.
With him, no pictures, no texts, no. There was rumor, speculation that he was following some of them on different social media sites. There was sites that were sent to us of, hey, this is him, he's following. They were either untrue or they were sites that people made that were completely fake. And so we had to research and go into every single one of those just to prove or debunk what somebody had made up and of course, then that spread to the media and it went wild that he was following or there was a connection and there wasn't. We wanted that, I think naturally we need that, what's the connection? What's the why? And we have found zero, never any connection.
I saw the amount of search warrants that you applied for and got returns on, and I don't think we saw the returns, but the work you were doing.
We haven't seen the returns yet, but we will. We will. And they can heavily redact those, though. I'm cool with having initials. I've already figured out shit, probably 3/4 of the initials. Welcome back. Phew. There ain't no connection with any social media. There ain't no connection with any phones. There is no digital connection. Woo, period. Like it's that simple. Who was spreading that? Who was spreading that? Think about it. I didn't hear Darren Gilbertson spreading that.
Was monumental going through everything. And I saw that in the documents. Back at the House, we have now learned because documents that have not been public have now been made public. And Xana Kernodle found on the floor.
You know what's interesting to me? CNN covered this case nothing. CNN was never around. CNN's getting the sit down. What a big slap in the dick to News Nation, right? To Court TV, right? Damn. What a big slap in the face. Wow. There is a new GoFundMe. There's a GoFundMe for Lana. GoFundMe for Lana. And for Dylan Mortensen. Lana Brains, maybe his trips to Target were for Starbucks. That's where I was headed. I went to Starbucks. I went to Target. Was it yesterday, the day before? I was talking about, and I was like leaving. And I was like looking, and I was like, hot damn. But I'm curious if it's Target that your card says or that it's Starbucks that your car says. So I thought about that, and I'm going to go and make a purchase from the Starbucks in the Target, and I want to see what it says, if it was a Starbucks purchase or a Target purchase. So trust me, I'm on it. We on that one. But way to be thinking. Gifted 5 memberships. Woo! So we're running a fundraiser tonight. I do believe I'm going to show up, but Dylan Mortensen is having her aunt started a GoFundMe page. I think it's up to 40 grand. I want to start a GoFundMe page.
Over 50 stab wounds, much of them defensive. Can you Can you explain that? Put that into layman's terms, the wounds and the defensive aspect of them.
She fought back, and she fought hard. And that's unless Darren can expand on that, that's primarily the reason.
Yeah, that was Xana absolutely fought.
What? He has nothing to say unless Darren wants to expand on that. She fought hard. Fought where? Began where? How about let's talk about she got her DoorDash? How about let's talk about she was texting Molly McMichael saying, "Where the fuck are you with my fucking food, bitch?" Like any other college kid would say. All right. What the hell? 50 stab wounds, and now most of them were defensive stab wounds. Well, how many were defensive versus how many? I'm curious of that. I'm curious to talk about the blood that was supposedly upstairs in the landing area. But so he doesn't know what's going on to the right, obviously, because Moscow Police Department did not run this investigation.
And we know that Xana was up. We know that Xana had just gotten her DoorDash shortly before this.
How do you know that? We went like, I'm sorry, but I would kind of interrupt there and say, I'm curious on that. How do you know that she actually received the DoorDash? You know, DoorDash gets set by the door all the time. And I've been notorious for it. And I'm like, I'll fall asleep before I go get my food. Sorry.
And was actively up. And so, yeah, she did. She fought.
So as she fought back, he kept stabbing.
No. Do you understand what
the fight just continued?
Yes. The fight just continued.
Kaylee, in the documents that
the fight just continued. How about this? So she had her voice while Xana is fighting for her life. Was she incapacitated in terms of that she couldn't scream? So wouldn't she have been screaming and yelling and telling her roommates like something, or call 911, or like, I mean, something? While she's fighting her ass off, she's not using her vocal cords. Was there music playing in the house that nobody could then hear the screams?
this became public, there was a preliminary autopsy report that said she was stabbed over 20 times. Mr. Gonsalves said, and we haven't seen the final autopsy, but he has said she was stabbed, Kaylee, over 30 times. Do you know the amount of times she was stabbed?
We do. We know the exact amount of times that every one of them was stabbed. And it's not something that we would speak about for the privacy of the families. And but I can tell you we've met with families, and his information that he has is very accurate.
Well, we know because of the public documents, her face was unrecognizable. And then the concept of, okay, a second weapon. Where do you stand on that to set the record straight?
There you go. Good question.
Yeah, we believe that there was one primary weapon. The same knife was used to kill all four. As has been reported, and I think the family has spoke to this, Kaylee was struck in the face, and we don't know what caused the
So she had blunt force trauma and nobody else did.
marks that were left by it. It was.
So what about brass knuckles? You know what I'm saying? Like,
fatal, and we just don't know what caused that.
So WSU Kim told me, and this is what's interesting, is that she said that Kaylee was unrecognizable, those exact words, and that Kaylee had been repeatedly punched in the face till her face was distorted. How would Kim know that? I saved everything. I have everything. She said this so long ago, and I was like, I'm not putting any of this out on my channel. Sorry, but like, if you can't tell me how you know this. If I can't vet it, I can't put it out there. I'm just not going to let that, you know. But she did know that, and it's true. So let me tell you something. If you guys think that she got it from her kid, well, how would her kid know that? They supposedly didn't go upstairs, meaning like anybody in the house. They didn't go and check on anybody. It just means the leak is real. It just means the leak is real. Okay, guys? The leak is real.
And we've never located, obviously, the knife that we know did kill all four. And we
How do you know that the sheath that was laid there, how do you know that it, they can say that they know this, but guess what? Nobody would be testifying to that on the stand. And in fact, I went and listened to what the Emmy wrote, or Payne took notes as far as what the Emmy was saying. And she said that it's possible that, yeah, that could have been the weapon, but it's also possible that there was other things. So I've sat in trials and I've listened to the way that Emmys will speak, and they're not, I mean, they're going to say that this is consistent with this. This is consistent with that. Yep, no, that's not consistent. And if you actually read the documents here with the reports, the Emmy specifically says that the guard of the, like, there's points, there's like square, but it was the guard on the K-bar. So she said, the Emmy said that the person that did this, or persons, you know, would be very, very, it's great strength. Great strength. They have great strength.
don't know what was used to do that.
Now, a fist can be a deadly weapon.
Right.
The injuries to the face, could that have simply been from a hand on her face?
No.
Because of the gouges.
So you believe the injury?
Brass knuckles. I believe like it would be something like that. But it's going to be something like your hands being wrapped in something.
Injuries to her face came from something other than his fist.
Yes, I think the fist could have been part of it, but it certainly appears something else struck her to cause the marks that we saw that is not consistent with a fist.
What about marks near her mouth that came out? I believe they came out in public documents. Bound?
Yep.
Gagged?
And those are what I'm referencing. And no, it doesn't appear, there was no evidence that she was bound or gagged.
Okay, then she's not screaming too?
Are the marks like from a knife?
No. No.
So the reality is the extent of what was done to her may be a mystery forever.
Yeah, it may be.
We saw publicly, it came out in legal filings, the selfie taken just hours after this all happened. He has a thumbs up. How do you interpret that picture?
That's hard to answer without.
Why
my
is
own
he answering
opinion,
questions? He had nothing
into
to do
it.
with this investigation.
You know, this individual, there's a lot of strange things about him and his demeanor and his way his brain works. So to say what I think that was would be pure speculation.
Exactly.
What about law enforcement theory? Because his thumb is up, right? His thumb is up. So that denotes.
What time
Right,
is
but the reality was we have many, many other pictures of him, selfies, where he has a very similar pose.
There you go. Look at, you know
It
what?
wasn't just one unique.
Give it up for Darren Gilbertson. Listen, he was like, I am not going to say stuff that's not true. Think about this. We have him doing that in so many other pictures. Think about that. Wow, so this wasn't like something like that he normally didn't do? Yeah, no. He did it all the time. Like, wow. When I heard that, I was just like, thank you. So there's nothing special about that picture.
That was only that way. That's probably the one that's circulated the most now. And I think you can make lots of speculation because of the timing, but the reality was there's other pictures where he has that similar pose.
Excellent point. To
There you go. There you go. Wow. Just
put it in perspective. Thank you for that. Do you believe that he committed other murders before November 13th, 2022?
We don't. We don't have any evidence. We don't have anything that's ever been located or found. We certainly, by we, I mean the FBI, the Pennsylvania State Police, every law enforcement agency that would have been anywhere that he's ever been has taken a hard look into that, because that's certainly one of the first things you wonder.
okay. So now I can break my silence. The Atlanta case that I was telling you guys about, they were strongly looking into Brian Kober for that Atlanta case that I had showed you guys about a couple months back, not even. I actually have a couple pictures that have never been put out publicly by like anybody from surveillance footage. And I'm not going to put them out, but yeah, they were trying to put him in Georgia during that time period.
Has this
The answer to that question that it was no, we don't believe that he's killed before.
occurred before, and there's nothing to support or show that he's ever done this before, and we don't believe that he ever had done it before.
So this would have been his first.
Yes.
Obviously, you believe he would have gone on
What? Obviously, why would you say it like that? Why don't you just ask?
do this again?
I don't know.
Good answer. Great answer. I'm liking Darren Gilbertson more and more every time he speaks. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea. But obviously, he's going to do this again. What? Well, we don't know his motive on why he did this. So we can't tell you if he would do this again. You know? If this was motive to kill one person and he ended up killing other people because of, holy shit, something, you know, he wasn't expecting somebody else to be another, you know, in the bed, and then you have the commotion, then you have the dog, then you have people screaming. So yeah, more people were killed because of, it wasn't planned like that. So I think that's a great answer. I have no idea.
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know.
I was talking with the district attorney in California that
Why?
said to me, Gene, he's a serial killer.
That's California for you. Sorry, but absolutely Cali for you. He's totally a serial killer.
I guess by definition,
They said it was an isolated targeted attack. Overkill, right?
because serial killer is 3 or more in that area. So do you consider him a serial killer, even though it's one episode?
No, I don't. It's not a term we've used at all, but I would tell you we've just not looked at that or thought about that. You know, we were obviously consumed by the investigation and the murders here. So I would certainly leave that to the experts. And
I just call him what he is. It's a murderer.
Quadruple murder.
And he will now die in prison for doing that.
So you've studied this for 2.5 years. You were just on the eve before trial. It's complicated. What is your working theory as law enforcement investigators on why he did what he did?
You know, that's the biggest question. And it's the same question we've had, and we've had it all along. But the reality is often we don't get the answers to the why. And I think even
What's your
in some
working
instances,
theory?
and I
What-
think
what-
this
what?
certainly could be one of those, the why from him may make no sense at all to us.
It should
and
make
not
no
even,
sense to anybody, because nobody should be able to rationalize with irrational. Nobody should be able to be in the mindset of somebody who's clearly fucked up if he's the killer, right? Whoever did this, whether it was him and other people, whoever the fuck did this, they're fucked, right? Total fucks.
be explainable or understandable. So we don't have.
But I will say this, if you're saying this is premeditated and he plotted this out and planned it out and hunted his prey and stuff like that, I'm going to say then your white car driving around has nothing to do with shit, because that would be the dumbest shit ever.
A motive. We don't have
Also, that's why there's no DNA or trace or anything in that vehicle.
anything that has said here's why or here's the reason. We just don't have that.
Well, he used a knife, multiple stabbings. In law enforcement, what does it denote when you have a deadly weapon that is a knife?
Passion, crime.
I would say, typically, if you look back historically, a lot of crimes that are committed with knives are a little more personal. But again, that's also speculation. As Lieutenant Gilbertson said, we all would like to understand and make some sort of sense of why in this situation. But that's just something that I don't think we're ever going to know.
What are your thoughts about when he was in graduate school in Pennsylvania? He had a project and he developed a questionnaire sending to convicted murderers around the country what their state of mind was before they committed the murder, during the time they were committing the murder, and after they committed the murder.
This is great.
What does that tell you about his state of mind in doing a project like that?
Absolutely nothing. It's part of his fucking career.
I think he's very consumed with it. And I would tell you, we looked into all of that. We obviously have everything that he studied, every project, every course that he's been in during all of his higher education, to include at WSU. And at the same time, though, anybody else that's in those fields, they're doing the similar things.
Thank you.
The similar type projects. So none of those were a one-off to only him. We could find many, many, many other students that were also doing the same or very similar. It's hard to not look at it and view that as part of the overall. Is that part of the why? Is that part of
you guys were going to use it though,
why he did this?
but it's
and again,
absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But it's just speculation and assumptions.
But I think,
And that's what Ann Taylor kept writing in all of those fucking motions. Same with their whole team kept on writing that, and Hitler's just like, no. And here they're even admitting it. Jesus.
you said something very valuable, consumed by it.
Right.
Because objectively speaking, when you look at everything, I think that is a reasonable conclusion. Consumed. I wanted to ask you, the president of Donald Trump cares about the victims in this case. And he has spoken out twice now about the families, the victims. Has he contacted anyone in Idaho at all that you know of about this case and his concern?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No, not that I'm aware
What a
of.
stupid question.
And yeah, somebody said that he had commented something the other day, and I thought they were joking, but apparently he did. But no, nothing that we know personally.
Right. Do you know at all if the Department of Justice has reached out for any of your files? Because he did travel from Washington to Idaho to commit the murders. He ordered the knife on Amazon through interstate commerce. He did allegedly stalked the home. That was a working theory, right, for months
Right.
before.
What?
There are federal crimes in that area.
Wait,
Has there
now
been
he
any
stalked the home?
communication? It's only been a few days, but
Not for the Department of Justice, other than through the FBI, who's been a fantastic partner with us the entire
They did the
time.
whole. They did everything.
Literally opened.
They didn't open anything. They did everything. The FBI did everything.
Anything that we needed. And it was a phenomenal resource, and we could not thank them enough for all of their efforts.
I saw that, and I'm sure the partnership was so tremendously valuable. When they started the investigative genetic genealogy, which really is at the forefront of stopping crimes from continuing to happen.
Okay, everybody wants to know what I think. Here you go. My dad always told me once, whenever you see something that has a potential to impact the future of how something would be done, you need to look at whatever would make that change happen. You need to take a really strong look at it. This would be the case where IGG goes from being the last resource that anybody should ever use in a case to being the first thing that you should use in a case. You should work from outside in now and go straight to IGG. This is the case that makes that happen. And it's coming at a time that the DOJ needed to get their asses in gear and get all these labs in gear and get all these genealogists in gear, because it's being run like the wild, wild west. And there's no nothing. And all we're going to see here is just, and then you have to ask yourself, this is why it was the stupidest question to ask it this way. And the way that you would ask the question is if IGG is so great, why couldn't you guys just use it, say that you used it, put it in your probable cause, okay, and truly try to make it a staple in law enforcement? Why would you ever hide that you used IGG if it is so great, right? Usually people boast about something that's so great. If we found a cure for cancer right now, do you think that we'd be hiding it? Do you think we'd be hiding if we found a cure for cancer? Fuck out of here.
They were fast on that. They got you that name.
How? Why don't you ask how?
What was that like when you did get that name?
What a horrible question. How did you get that name? How about that? You're assuming that it was IGG. What if it really wasn't and somebody saw an opportunity to make it seem like it was? How about that?
Well, it was.
Look at, he looks at him. I'm not going to answer this. I'm not going to answer this. Look at that.
What was that like when you did get that name?
Well, it was. I'll let Darren take that one. But
Yep, go ahead, buddy. I'll let you take that one. I'm not touching that shit.
Yeah, it was incredible.
It's incredible.
We received a call.
I would have been like, we were shocked. There was nowhere where we were headed with our investigation. When we got this name, I'm like, Brian Koberger, who's that? Does anybody know? Is he in any of the reports that we have? Who is Brian Koberger? That wouldn't have been my answer. My answer would have been, what? My answer would have been, who's Brian fucking Koberger? We had no idea who Brian Koberger was. When we heard this name, we're like, this is even, wait, guys, are we sure this, it's on the sheath. Okay, is there any way that this, we have a lot of things going on here. Could we possibly multiple people? Like, let's just slow our roll. Like, what's going on with this? Don't we want to find out more about this? Let's hear how. I mean, I'd be like, whoa, hey, ha. Wait, who?
That evening from them, and they told us that they had some information for us and said that they had a name and provided the name. And I think we were all in disbelief,
There you go.
because you've worked so hard and went through so much to that point, and then to just like that have a name. So
Why would you be disappointed? Wait, disappointed?
some information for us and said that they had a name and provided the name. And I think we were all in disbelief, because you've worked so hard and went through so much to that point, and then to just like that have a name. So yeah, it was.
What does that even mean? Disbelief. You were in disbelief because you went through all that work, all that hard work for all those weeks, right? And you're in disbelief because it's like, who is this person? We don't believe it? Or like, usually what is supposed to happen is that it's supposed to just be a tip. And that's not how he's treating it. He's treating it as like, this is the killer. You gave us a name because the FBI has already done the work. We couldn't believe that we put in all this work, ISP and Moscow Police Department. We put in all this work and we were never going to get to that. And here comes the FBI with this name. And it was like a big, like, wind just let out of our sail because we're like, what? Like, how did you guys just, we've been working our asses off and you guys, what did you guys do? Oh, you guys cheated. Is that kind of the feeling that you get? Like, this guy just played Monopoly and wonders how he built all those hotels and houses and he has Boardwalk and Park Place and we're on our way to, we're doing all this work and then the FBI comes in. Because the way that it should be said is that it's just, hey, this is a tip. This is we need to look into him. This is who this is. But why would everything just be like, this is weird. This is a weird feeling.
Felt surreal and disbelief and
Disbelief. Why?
all those emotions, but that's only very quick and momentarily, because then we have a name. So then we start a whole new bit of work.
Wait. Why would you have to start a whole bit of new work? Why would that name change anything that you were doing? Why would that name change anything that you were doing? You'd want to ask, wait a second, we have all of this going on right now. How does that name fit into, like, we haven't even cleared any of these people. We haven't even opened up any of these phones that we've extracted. How does this person fit into how does this person fit in? How about that? How does this person fit in versus that they're the killer? To then that they could be then the killer. I mean, I would just be like, whoa, okay, we have this other blood. That's just like the DNA, but we actually have blood. Should we like see whose blood this belongs to? Can we give that to the FBI to see if they can tell us who this blood belongs to? Because it's great that they found touch DNA. I love it. Awesome. But how about this blood? Because you're telling me out of 120 officers, all of them just totally agree that this is one person versus that there could no way there to be other people. So, hey, let's eliminate this blood, you guys. Because we've taken a lot of samples in and none of it's matching the blood that's in the house. And if we're trying to have a successful prosecution, either we need to railroad this motherfucker so that he'd want to take a plea deal so that we don't ever see the light of day in a courtroom, right? Because the feds told us that we cannot even use like the name. We can't even say that how we got to him. We have to find out some other way. And if we have to do all of that, then doesn't something feel wrong? Doesn't something feel off? You're telling me out of 120 people, not a single person felt that way? Not a single person that worked this investigation felt that way? Not even one? I would have felt like, okay, great. Let's bring him in. Let's ask him some questions. Oh, we can't do that. What do you mean? That's what we do to anybody. We bring him in, we ask him a bunch of questions. The moment that I would have found out that he had a white car, let's bring him in and ask him questions, not arrest him. Let's get him talking. Let's see if we can get him confess. Isn't that what you did to Dr. Moore in Idaho? Isn't that what you guys do all the time? So why with him was it not that way? Why did you talk to Jack D? Why did you talk to Jack Showalter? Why did you talk to Adam? Why did you talk to 500 people? This is the only person that it was handled differently with. And I'm just curious. I want to know the why on why you handled it differently. Why you didn't want to interview him. Because you knew that you didn't have probable cause for shit, right? Well, maybe you could have developed probable cause by talking to him. Maybe you could have got him to confess like you did Dr. Moore, right?
Start diving into this name and who he is. And so there was just never much time to really think about anything because we were just consistently moving on. So
never any time to think about anything. Exactly. You guys didn't think about anything. It was just, we have to get somebody before these kids come back to school. Before Christmas break is up. We're not losing our enrollment.
Genealogy as that investigative tool, that tip.
And I'm all for if y'all want to use IgG. Don't get that twisted either. But if you have to hide it, then something's wrong. If you have to hide that you used IgG, then something's wrong. Because again, don't get this twisted. I'm all for investigative genealogy. Go right ahead. If you have to hide that you used it, something's wrong. And they haven't in other cases. They've put it in probable cause documents before. So why not in this one?
Do you find it indispensable in today's day and age?
Absolutely. Yeah, both, with the Idaho State Police, we have a contract with Othram Laboratories in Texas, and the work that they do, it's incredible. They're solving crimes that have 40, 50 years.
But they didn't solve this crime. Or are we going to finally talk about that?
Old. That we would never have any closure or be able to solve those. And
so then why wouldn't the CNN woman say, but it didn't work in this case, right? Because Othram had it first. They weren't able to develop anything, right? Or did Othram, were they used by the feds as well? Or did they go into the database of the special relationship that the feds have to then here, we'll give you this, because they had some new contract that started up in September of 2022 for $480,000. It was from September of 2022 to September of 2027 for special exigent circumstances the FBI could get into and use DNA solves. And DNA solves, in my opinion, is a huge database. That's just what I think. I would love to go through and tour it, but I also think COVID has had a lot of I think that somebody got a bunch of new profiles due to COVID.
So that and the FBI is doing the same, and it's unbelievable. It's a phenomenal tool.
Yeah. Are the students here in Moscow,
Phenomenal
are they
tool.
safe now?
How does she not say, but that's how you guys got to Brian Kober, but you guys didn't put it anywhere in your probable cause? So how did you guys really truly develop probable cause?
Now,
Yes. Yes, our community is safe.
do you have any concern of copycat artists or anything that could, as the judge?
What? You would have that concern. What are you talking about? Any day anybody could be copycat. What a stupid fucking question. No wonder people fucking don't watch CN motherfucking anymore. Absolutely horrible question. Are you worried about a copycat? Excuse me? Where are you getting that from? Copycat. Who'd want to copy that fucking weird ass motherfucking Culver dude? Right? Like, what are you talking about? What is so? That's so stupid. So stupid. I'm sorry, man. That is ridiculous. That is dumb as. That's just dumb.
Say want their 15 minutes of fame.
What?
We at the Moscow Police Department, and so did Lieutenant Gilbertson when he joined the Idaho State Police, we swore an oath to protect our communities from any and all threats. And so, although this case will always be a part of our history, and quite frankly, one that I'm proud of the work that we did.
I don't think you guys did much, but that's okay. Congratulations, be proud. I just can't even. I have no words. Whatever. That's crazy. That's absolutely, what a stupid question. What a waste. Now, moving on, Ann Taylor made herself known on July 17th and said that she won't be speaking until after the sentencing and blah, blah, and nobody from the defense team will, and put out a statement. I guess Megyn Kelly feels some type of way. And so I want to show you guys how Megyn Kelly feels right now. CNN's just whatever, dude. That's just, I can't even. Anybody watches that shit, and what a stupid question.
Tell you that we've announced today our latest offering from the MK Media Podcast Network that may be.
When Karen and Ben told her Nana was coming to visit, she figured I say deedle deedle for that word. So I became deedle deedle.
In front of them, happy lives, beautiful, their lives snuffed out at nine, still acting like the PhD student who could get an A for his classroom behavior and trying to fool us into thinking he's respectful in any way. Here's that moment.
All right, Mr. Koberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
What's that about? Who does he think he's fooling? What a joke this man is. I use that term very loosely. The judge sentencing him as expected to the maximum on all counts, 10 years in prison on the burglary count, life without, well, he didn't say without parole. We'll talk to Matt about that in a minute, but life for Maddie, life for Kaylee, life for Xana, life for Ethan to run consecutively, meaning one after the other, along with $50,000 in fines for each victim and a $5,000 civil penalty to the family. This is the end, technically, guys. My panel's back with me, Phil Holloway, Howard Bloom, and Matt Murphy. This is the end.
This is the end.
I don't know. It feels unsatisfying. Matt, you've been through this so many times. Does it always feel unsatisfying?
Yeah.
Well, it's always a little anticlimactic when there's a plea, Megan. I think that if this was a sentencing after a jury trial, we might feel a little bit different because we would have really seen the exhaustion of all
What were you guys thinking what he was going to do? It was max everything. What was anybody expecting? There was nothing. It was sentencing. The only thing that you could be like waiting to see is if Brian Kober stood up and said, "Fuck this, I'm going to court." You know what I mean? Otherwise, what do you think Hitler was going to do? There's nothing.
The evidence that was available, we would have seen and heard every detail of this investigation. And I just, again, I've said it before, but kudos to the police here. They really are the heroes on this, from the local police department to the state troopers of Idaho to the FBI. They really did an outstanding job. And I
See, I just, no, you're not going to hear that from me. You're going to hear what you're going to hear from me is I believe that our rights were violated. Did they get the right guy? And that just comes like, do you believe that the end justifies the means? I don't believe ever our rights are cool to be violated. I'm always going to be the person that's going to say that if a guilty man has to go free in order for an innocent man not to go to prison, that's my stance. I believe that our rights were violated. They showed me time and time again that probable cause was not had the way they said that it was. They lied. Okay. But that doesn't mean that they didn't get the right person. But our rights were violated. No doubt about it in my mind. I have a police report that's sitting right next to me that I know is false. And I proved it this morning on my channel. So, and they're writing and saying under the penalty of perjury and writing this shit in their fucking reports that they're swearing to these reports.
hope people remember that. The only reason why we had this sentencing is because of the hard work of those men and women. And I was really grateful to see the family members acknowledge them in that. Even Mr. Gonzalez, as angry as he was, he gave a shout out to the police, which I thought was really dignified. But I'm struck by this judge. It's important for people to remember that all judges are not created equal. And this Judge Hitler did a fantastic job. I thought that his comments were exactly on point. And I think that he really spoke to all of us when he said, you know, the more we wonder why in something that he would never tell the truth on and is really unexplainable anyway, the more we continue to give him power. Now, everybody wants to know why because we want to prevent it.
Actually, if Judge Hitler would have stayed in his lane, I actually believe that there would have been a trial then. So everybody that's wondering in one of those answers, like these people want on this panel, and people wanted a trial and they want to get these answers. Well, I think if Hitler would have made some different calls over since the time that it moved to Ada, because when it was actually in Latah, the defense was winning motions. Once it moved to Ada County, Judge Hitler's not even letting witnesses speak at suppression hearings or motion limines to show that we have a huge problem here. We have the prosecution continuing to lie and now try to take from us the opportunity to cross-examine people on the timing advance reports. And instead of listening to an expert speak on that, Judge Hitler just goes ahead and calls that person a conspiracy theorist. I think that that's absolutely uncalled for. Why is Judge Hitler suppressing a witness that has the background and to speak on something when, especially after Jennings says that what's 7 minutes? So let's say that it is even 7 minutes, and you know it wasn't right, the 2:47, and it was 2:54. Like you would have thought that Hitler had a twin, and that the twins in there handling the court, and the other twins handling the papers. I don't know how you could possibly have 1,000 pages worth of exhibits, and Hitler then is making up excuses as to why not to grant a Franks, why not to grant an evidentiary hearing, and why he thought the best course of action was to label somebody who has given nothing but his time to actually the prosecution for every case minus this one, to sit there and call him a conspiracy theorist when he only has ever worked with and for law enforcement. That is an absolute fucking joke. And I just say, how goddamn dare you? Like, he put it in an affidavit and he said, give this the time and attention it deserves. How are you letting this in front of your face continue to be peddled? And then Hitler has the audacity than to come out and say these accusations could lose somebody their job. Well, so fucking be it if Ashley fucking Jennings loses her law license. If she's going to lie, she deserves to lose her law license. Don't protect it. How about this? If you have Ashley Jennings back, say, we're going to go ahead and do the evidentiary hearing. We're going to go ahead and have Cyrus speak. We're going to go ahead and have him speak on this. We're going to go ahead and let him show us the proof that he says that he has. And then if he can't back it up, then bash him on the back end. But to prevent it, that word is called suppression. And all that I saw was Hitler was suppressing somebody to just have a fair trial. We have the right to have a fair trial. Again, guilty, innocent, we have that right. And if you want to think that Brian Kober got a fair shake, again, that doesn't mean I think he's innocent. I mean, or that I think he's guilty. I'm just saying fair. Want to talk about fair? Do I think that what happened in Ada County was fair? Absolutely not. Does that make him innocent? No, that doesn't make him innocent. But we don't know. Truly. Did he confess to killing 4 people? Absolutely he did. Am I going to take him at his word? Yeah, because I think that for me, you had great attorneys, and I would have taken my chances, especially after seeing the reports that they had. And if I would have known Ann Taylor and been talking to her and said, if I was in his shoes, hey, dude, I didn't do this. I was framed. And that's what he's saying. How are you going to defend me? What's our game plan here? Do you have a chance at winning this? Do I have a chance of getting a hung jury? You know, I didn't do this, right? Isn't that what you'd be saying? And I would say, I don't care what my fucking family's telling you. I don't care if my family's calling you 5 times a day. Okay. I'm not living in prison. I'm not going to go get the D's when I can get the A's. You know what I'm saying? So when you would have had a rock star team that Kohlberger had, when you had the experts that he had, even if he was guilty, why aren't you going to bat? Knowing that they've done so much bullshit, even though you are guilty, that you have a chance to get out of it. A narcissist would do that, wouldn't they? Think about it. Especially if I knew that I would have all my appeals even after the end of it. And trust me, he had a lot of ground on those appeals. It sounds like Brian doesn't want to be living on death row where you can't do shit. Where he can be living now and he gets to have all of his discovery. And he can, help people with their cases, possibly help the police. Who knows? Write a book, spin around, gives a fuck. He clearly didn't care enough about his rights to fight for him, so fuck him. You see Karen Reed fucking take a plea deal? No. Bitch said bring it. So I'm not a big fan of pussy ass bitches. I don't care if your life is on the line. You still fucking fight. If you're not going to fight for yourself, I'm not going to fight for you. Fuck you. But I will fight for my rights. And our rights were violated in this case. And that's all I care about. Brian can sit and spin. I care about our rights, and they violated our rights. I know that.
Want to see it coming. We want to know what to look for to prevent the next Brian Koberger. But I thought that he was outstanding. And remember, he did not have to impose that. This was discretionary with the court. That was one of my criticisms of Thompson at the beginning. He surrendered that power to sentence to the, they call it fixed life in Idaho, which is life without possibility of parole. Okay, the court imposed that upon its own discretion. So hats off to the court. I thought that judge really did an outstanding job today. And he did exactly the right thing. And I thought his comments are something that we should all think about.
It was a new perspective setter because we're also unsatisfied with him not having to explain why, but it was a good reminder of like, who cares? What could he possibly say that would satisfy any of us? You know, this cretin, this human excrement sitting there. I don't know what happened to him, but he doesn't seem human to me. He seems otherworldly. And I don't mean that in a complimentary way. He just seems like something, frankly, that needs to be snuffed out. But the next best thing, Howard, is to have him rot in prison for the rest of his life. And I'm picturing the door closing behind him, as the judge said.
I'm from the set that finds this deeply unsatisfying. There were two diametrically opposed positions presented today. One was by the Gonsalves family.
Did you guys see Olivia? I gotta give it to her. She's like, I was prepared to go fucking jail. I was prepared to get arrested for that shit. Who wouldn't, man? Wouldn't you do that? And that's why I have no problem. Like the way that the families are, hey, this guy says he did it, right? This guy says he did it. Of course I'm gonna fucking take out my frustrations. You killed my sister. Of course I'm gonna go fucking ham on your ass. And I was ready to go to fucking jail. Like, Olivia being real. Like, fuck, dude, I was ready to go to jail. Like, wouldn't you for your sibling who was murdered? And all you have is you have the police telling you this is their dude, he did it alone, and then you got the guy saying, "Yep, I did it. I'm taking a plea deal, to save my life." So why should any family think that they don't have the right guy? So people that are fucking blaming the family or saying anything nasty about the family, I think you're absolutely fucking insane. Like, and I hope that fucking Dylan Mortensen raises $100,000. All right, Dylan. Do I think that your guys' stories is whack? Absolutely. You told the police that you didn't hear a firework, even though you told Bethany that you did. Or at least Bethany tells the world that, well, yeah, when I asked her about it, she said that she did hear it. And Dylan's in there saying, I didn't hear that. There's a dog missing. That was a oops by Bethany, let that out. Then when she actually sits down and has her phone and she's looking at her phone, she covers up the fact that Maddie called her. She covers up the fact that the dog was like missing. Then the people in the backyard the Walenta fucking peeps, who's always calling in the noise complaints. Homie just happened to wake up at 4:17 and look at his alarm clock the same time that the thud's happening. I mean, the shit in this case, the jury would have been just like blown. The jury, I personally think that whoever committed this crime would have gotten away with it if this would have went to court. This was going to be an absolute shit show. There's no jury that, even with the touch DNA, in my opinion, once all this other stuff would have come out, would have been able to convict Brian Koberger or anybody that would have been in his shoes because of everything. If all they would have had, and they did, is the touch DNA, is that going to be enough? And I think all the wild cards, and Anne's really, really good about she goes the route of, even though she wanted like third party culpability, they were going hard for the reasonable doubt. Trust me. You can see it. You can see in all the discovery requests that she's asking for. She was going to show that they didn't explore any avenue of people that they had, and they didn't shut anything down. There was nothing that was, this person was ruled out. What, because their DNA wasn't the sheath DNA? Because their DNA wasn't the blood that was in the house on the railing? They would have had the Emmy up there talking about that the wounds could have been from another weapon. And then you bring in the drugs. You just bring in all these different angles. No wonder that this case was going to take 3 months at trial. I could see it. How about the Cole guy that got kicked out of the Quarter Club? By the next day, he was back in Boise. How? How was he back in Boise? The Cole guy was in the Corner Club, supposedly touching girls' asses, touching Maddie's asses, and gets kicked out. How was he back in Boise by the next day when he got a phone call? How is it that he would live in Boise, but he was supposedly taking classes with Maddie Was he taking online classes? So I just want to hear a lot more about that. And then you got Jack Showalter, who, same thing. He just decides to drive to Boise that night. Then you have the whereabouts of Ethan and Xana that we have no idea when they come home. Like literally to the point that they're not home by 2, 3. Dylan nor Bethany mention Ethan or Xana ever coming home in any of their interviews. Not once. Then you have Molly McMichael, who basically sees the undercover cops. That's the tan sedan. That's actually the silver car, but it looks tan under the lights. Molly sees a guy with spiky hair, blonde. You know when you take a mask off anytime you go skiing and you whip off your gear, your hair gets all crazy. Just saying. They lied about where they were at between 3:17 and 3:32. Molly McMichael, man, just walking around with her flashlight. You have blood on the second level of the 700 block over there at the Whites. How is there blood on the second level? What? Did they even go and test it? How do they know that it's blood? Oh, because they sprayed it and it tested positive for it. Whose blood is it? I mean, I just keep turning the pages in this 314 pages, and I'm just like, there's no closure to any report. There's just no closure. And then I thought for sure Emma Bailey or Demetrius would have been interviewed, only because I have a girl saying that she was suspecting Emma Bailey until she found out that a knife was involved. That she thought it was drugs and that it had something to do with Emma Bailey, and that she was over and lives in that area, but also is by the Whites. I'm like, wait, what? You guys need to see my episode this morning, okay? For an undercover cop to lie 36 hours after an incident in a report that he should have no reason to think that he needs to do anything like that, to make it so that his car couldn't possibly be anywhere other than right there on Taylor Park because they hadn't left from writing up a police report, is absolutely wild to me. Demetrius is black. He's not, super dark skinned. And there's a guy following Kaylee that was dark, not white. That just happened a little bit ago. Before that, I could totally see Kaylee being his type. There's not too many black people in Idaho. I'm sure you could probably figure out who the hell was, hollering at. Maybe one of the alternate perpetrators was D. I don't know. Then you throw in Brent Kapaka somewhere in the mix. I mean, I think the defense team said this case is full of alternate perpetrators, and she's not lying. I have not caught the defense in one lie, not a single one. I'll be honest. I'll tell you, and I'm just like, damn, what are they talking about? Anything that was pertinent, Moscow Police Department did not do. It was in the hands of Idaho State Police or the FBI. So I thought about this. Molly McMichael, when they did this trap trying to trace on her phone, and they see that this number is in this geofence, okay? Well, how did they ever call Molly up to get her to come into that interview on 11/23 for the first time? Think about it. If you didn't come to me since 11/13 to 11/23 as being the DoorDash, and you would have been the lab, that's your last order, right? You know that house, you're seeing it on social media everywhere, right? Oh my god, that's where we delivered. Oh my god, that's where I delivered, So 10 days goes by and you don't ever come to me and say, oh my god, hey, I DoorDash there, How then, because it's no different than what you would have done with Brian Kohlberger here. How am I calling up this Molly chick saying, hey, is Molly there? Hi, Molly. This is Brett Payne with the Moscow Police Department. How are you, Molly? We were just wondering if you could just come on in and talk with us. We got some questions for you, and it pertains to what? Molly shows up at 8 or 8:30 on that 11/23 night. Now, I find that means that there would have had to be a talk to have her come in because she's going to have a planned interview with Payne. Okay. It didn't say in the report that Molly just showed up at the police department. It was a scheduled interview. And so those scheduled interviews get scheduled. So I thought about it and I said, I believe that Bill Thompson would have seen that name. He's totally invested. He's hand in hand working with Chief Fry, hand in hand working with everybody. Wait, who's on that? Oh my God, that geofence went back to Molly McMichael. I know her. You know Molly. Molly, her husband was shot in that, back 10, however many years it's been now. Oh my God, Molly. Yes, I know Molly. I'll just call her up. I'll have her come in. There's got to be a great explanation why Molly's over there. You know what? Doesn't she do that? Doesn't she deliver for something? Does she live over there? Well, clearly we know it's not Molly that killed anybody. She can barely walk, guys, okay? Molly ain't taking out, anybody even with a knife. Okay? Those girls would have kicked her ass. So do I see that? Do I see somebody seeing an opportunity to say to themselves, oh my God, what did Molly see? We can't have Molly be a witness to something that's opposite of what's been going down,
Raised questions, specific questions. They wanted answers. The judge, in effect, said, let's move on. He said that literally. Let's move on. We can forget about it. Well, I think it's too soon to forget about it. Yes, we'll never know a rational reason why he did it, but there still are other questions remaining. Where is the knife? How did he cover up his tracks? I would like more answers. I think the people of Idaho, the families, and all of us, the public, should have been presented with more answers.
I did think it was a little odd.
Well, you know who can get all those answers, you guys? The police departments. They can just release shit. So if you're not happy with it, go file public requests. I filed a couple days ago. I filed with Washington State. I filed with Pullman. I filed with ISP. And tomorrow morning, I'm filing a big one with Moscow Police Department.
Phil, that the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, spent a good chunk of his closing remarks trying to talk about how he notified the families of the pending plea. It was like he was trying to rehabilitate himself in response to...
I love it, Megan Kelly. He was trying to rehabilitate himself. Give it up. Cheers.
Steve Gonsalves's complaints about the way the plea was handled. I just thought that was totally inappropriate. It reminded me of the judge when Kohlberger, pleaded guilty, making it all about the phone calls he'd received from people who are out. Like, stop making it about yourself. This isn't about you rehabbing you.
I've been pretty critical about this prosecution team, not for the quality of the case they put together, because as others have correctly mentioned, they did a great job along with the law enforcement who investigated this case. But from a PR perspective, I think that they really dropped the ball. And to see an extension of that today, it was almost like you saw a little bit of grandstanding. This is there's no jury present. It's just a judge. This is a non-jury proceeding. So it was a bit over the top.
What the fuck have you guys been watching? This case has not been handled right. This case wasn't handled well. What are you talking about, man? If this case was handled well, a plea deal would have happened 2.5 years ago. And none of these fucking victims would have been dragged through the mud at all, or their families. Okay? But it was such a fuck job that they did. And that Ann Taylor could literally just keep filing all of this shit. And talking about alternate perpetrators a week before the plea deal. Think about that. Ann Taylor can't lie about stuff like that. She'd be disbarred. But we consider there's alternate perpetrators because y'all didn't rule people out. Because y'all didn't do shit. You didn't go and get cell phones. And when you went and got them, you didn't even look at the extractions. You didn't even look at the extractions. You were okay with letting the narrative live on that was in and given to the grand jury, which was fucking lies. And Ann Taylor was like, I'm not having that. This isn't the narrative. Just like if my client did it, he didn't show up in that fucking white piece of shit car you keep fucking having circling around, motherfuckers. I'm sorry, if I was on that jury. I asked Denny what he thought about it. He was like, what do you mean they didn't call 911 for until noon? He's like, pfft. I was like, if you were on a jury, what would you think about that? He's like, I would think that those girls were they dead? Were they impaired? Was something wrong with them? Like, were they drugged? He doesn't know anything about the case. And I just love it. It's good to ask people what they think about something, you know? And he's like, yeah, no, not calling 911 after you supposedly came in contact face to face with a masked man who you thought had a knife or a gun or an arrow or had a mat. I mean, none of that's okay. None of that. He said that'd be hard for a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s to understand. And
top in terms of theatrics. And as you mentioned, it seemed to be aimed at rehabilitating their own image for those of us in the public who are being somewhat critical. They, in my view, should have had all of the families in agreement on this plea deal, or there would be no deal. That's just my opinion. That's how I would have played it if I had been the prosecutor, because that would have perhaps left us with perhaps some little bit more increased measure of satisfaction. We're all left unsatisfied right now. Think about how the families must feel as they're leaving the courthouse. But had there been a trial and a sentencing hearing with evidence and aggravation, we might have known a lot more, because as we go forward today, we're all left with these lingering questions of why did this have to happen? Why did it happen? And because I think the decisions the prosecutor made, we're going to be left with these.
What do you mean, why? Why did this happen? People kill people every day. Fucked up people kill people, right? I've never seen so many people saying why? Why do these school shootings fucking happen every day? What do you mean? Because there's a fucking deranged person, right? Well, if Brian Kober is the one, you guys, I hate to break this to you, but if Brian Kober is the one, he's a deranged person. That's why. But it seems like you people that think that he's the guilty one so much, he's deranged. It sounds like you guys don't believe your own bullshit is what it sounds like to me, because you guys need this why. When I don't see anybody ever saying that. Like, why would you ever go into a school and shoot it up? Little kids, kindergartners, man, fuck you. Why would they ever do that? I don't understand ever why, if somebody fucks you up or bullies you, why aren't you fucking them up? Why aren't you going and taking your gun and blowing them up? Why would you go and shoot up innocent people when you have an opportunity to take out the motherfucker who fucked you up?
Answers. And let me just point this one thing out. This court today rendered a judgment. There can be a judgment in any case. But when we speak of what justice is, was justice delivered? Justice is one of those words that's incapable of being defined, and it's in the eye of the beholder. But I would submit that there is no amount of justice, whatever it may be, that can possibly apply to this case, because the magnitude of the destruction, not only of the individuals' lives who were taken, but the destruction that is left in the wake of this evil act, is not capable of receiving adequate justice, in my view. So there's, I think, always going to be some measure of dissatisfaction, because justice just can't address this kind of evil.
So well said. It captures what I'm feeling right now. When I listened to, for example, Kaylee's sister speak, I felt like, yes, this is.
I would feel that with any case. I would feel that with any case where somebody was like, why are you killing somebody that you don't know? Why are you killing somebody and stabbing somebody 30, 40, 50 times that you don't know? Why are you going into somebody's house that you don't know when there's a bunch of random cars that you don't know and you have no idea what to expect in there? What do you think's going to happen? Why do people kill people they don't know every single day? I think that's
what I want. I want to hear him humiliated. I'm enjoying that piece, but everything else has just left me with this empty feeling of like,
what?
Why? Not demanding an explanation, but just the human evil, the evil that walks amongst us as human beings, and the snuffing out of these 4 lives with nothing but promise in front of them. And Steve Gonsalves was right. They did a very good job, those families, of getting out the videos of those 4 kids and helping us get to know them, Howard, and fall in love with the 4 of them and their huge 1,000-watt smiles and the joy they clearly felt on the Idaho campus and the football.
Do you ever wonder like what a parent thinks about if their kid would ever go and do something like this? Like how did I not catch it? How did I not see that my kid's fucked up? And oh my God, like I have a feeling that my kid could do something like cuckoo. Why didn't Michael Kohlberger go to the sentencing? I think that's the most bizarre part of everything that happened on that day, is that Michael Kohlberger wasn't there.
Games they celebrated and the dance parties, the one sister mentioned, like these were jubilant, really happy, lovely kids, just American kids trying to get an education and have a good time. And he resented it without him saying anything. We know you've written about it. He couldn't stand their happiness.
I mean, Steve, to my mind, is a hero throughout this whole thing. He refused to just move on. Everyone else, the judge, the prosecutor, they kept on repeating that phrase, it's time to move on, it's time to move on. Well, the reality is none of these families are ever going to be able to move on. I don't think the town of Moscow will be able to move on. And I think we should have been given some answers. The sister Olivia raised the questions. The questions were, as you pointed out, very similar to the questions Kohlberger included in his master's dissertation that he distributed to prisons. He should be asked those questions. We should be get those answers. That he distributed to prisons. He should be very similar to the questions Kohlberger included in his master's dissertation that he distributed to prisons. He
distributed them to the prisons. Is Howard Bloom, did he have surgery in his mouth? He's never talked like this before. What's going on? Did he have surgery or something? He had to have.
Ask those questions. We should be get those answers.
That's the other thing. The judge is like, well, I really hope no journalist or publishing house gives him the opportunity to give an interview or write a book. First of all, he's not allowed to make money on a book. That's illegal. But that's not to say, I guess, one couldn't be published where he wouldn't get paid. Then he's certainly going to get the knock on the door from journalists up and down the spectrum. And Catherine Rumsfeld, or whatever her last name, unless I'm forgetting her last name. Thank you, Ramsland. His former master's professor at DeSales University has said she'd like to study him. He'll love all of that. Look, that's just human nature. People want to study serial killers. It's a natural thing we want to understand. But I will say to this Judge Hippler, what would have made it slightly less likely is if your DA required him to really cop to the crime and explain himself at this sentencing hearing, Matt. Like him allowing this defendant to remain an enigma, to not say anything, is only going to make the press and everyone else more interested in him.
Yeah, I want to add on to that a little bit, Megan. And I want to be fair here because it's a tough job. You're the elected DA. You got a lot going on. You have the families. There are good reasons. Look, when it comes to appellate issues, things like that, all of that is real. And it gives some finality. I hate the word closure. He used it. I think that's a trope. These families, like Howard pointed out, there's no closure for them. But so that said, I want to be fair to the prosecutor. However, that little speech that he gave, that performative aspect of that, first of all, the seminal case in the United States, okay, seems to be out of Idaho. It's a Sonia Sotomayor 2019 opinion from the United States Supreme Court called Garza versus Idaho. Thompson made this big point of saying he waived his appellate rights. The case in the United States is out of Idaho that says you can't actually ever waive your appellate rights. Okay, so that's not real. And it is the law that he can still, as the court pointed out at the end, you got 42 days to file your notice of appeal. It might breach the plea because that essentially is a contract, but now it's post-sentencing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see him file notice of appeal, and you can do that. And that's for direct.
You guys, if he files an appeal, this is going to be an absolute uproar. That's why I think that people should hang tight before they come out just swinging these next days. If I was, I'm curious if they're going to hold off on putting stuff out until after the 42 days is up. I know if I was in charge of anything, I would be holding off on putting anything out. I'd be holding off on speaking. I'd like, listen, you know what? We're going to wait until the 42 days are up. Mr. Kohlberger is unpredictable. And if he tries to appeal this, what's the matter? You've waited 2.5 years. I think that we can wait 42 more days. You know what I mean? But
appeal. We still have the entire habeas process, which is another way to challenge a conviction. And Thompson gave that up with his plea. He did. He knows he did. And look, there's good reasons for, good reasons against. I'm with Philip here. I wouldn't have given him this deal. Death penalty cases are hard. That goes with the job. Dealing with family members who disagree, also that's good reasons against. So, and it is the law that he can still, as the court pointed out at the end, you got 42 days to file your notice of appeal. It might breach the plea because that essentially is a contract, but now it's post-sentencing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see him file notice of appeal, and you can do that. And that's for direct appeal. We still have the entire habeas process, which is another way to challenge a conviction. And Thompson gave that up with his plea. He did. He knows he did. And look, there's good reasons for, good reasons against. I'm with Philip here. I wouldn't have given him this deal. Death penalty cases are hard. That goes with the job. Dealing with family members who disagree, also that's a part of the job. But another thing that really does disturb me a little bit on this is there's a saying, Megan, so goes California, goes the rest of the nation. We've all heard that before. There are huge movements and legislative pushes in the state of California to eliminate LWOP, or life without possibility of parole, as a sentence. 40 years is a long time. And the last time we talked about this, I said, I think he's going to get a parole hearing one day. And under current Idaho law, he will not. The way the court did this, they call it fixed life. Almost every other state calls it life without possibility of parole. I think it's North Carolina calls it life without mercy. Every state has its own.
Hold that thought. I want to hear the end of this, but I'm about to hit a hard break on SiriusXM. We'll continue on pod and youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. SiriusXMers, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you over at YouTube and on pod. And we're back, Matt. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah. So the DA's sort of statement that he waived his appellate rights is just he did on paper, but it doesn't actually mean anything. He can still appeal. It may be a tougher appellate road. He can still do a direct appeal. He just has to accuse his defense lawyers of ineffective assistance of counsel. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that. And
that's his only way. And I think your best way out, I think your best shot at that, he should have done a preliminary hearing within 14 days. And Ann Taylor dragging that out and agreeing that it should happen in 6 months. That allowed, then you have to go look at the sheets and see what the police actually put together from the time that he would have had his preliminary hearing, and count that all the way back. Also, they made him pick between a speedy rights for speedy trial, or his, effective assistance of counsel. You're making my client pick because they wouldn't put the stay on something. It's gonna be this case ain't going anywhere. I just feel really bad for the families. And it's just like, dude, have the trial. Get it over with. I think people would have been, I think there was going to be a lot of embarrassment.
And of course, 40 years is an awful long time for them to get an opportunity to switch the law, and look, the Menendez brothers got life without possibility of parole in California, and we know what just happened there. There have been significant legislative actions that allow people with life without possibility of parole sentences in other states to now get them. So that was, he stood up, he said that. It sounded awful good. However, there's a lot more to it, and I hope it's the end. I hope him going away and the door closing and all that stuff is the end, but legally, it's really not.
Phil?
Let me add something to that if I can. I'm glad that we're talking about ineffective assistance of counsel. This, of course, being a Sixth Amendment right that you have under the U.S. Constitution, and each state has their own. All he would really need to do is say, look, we had identified 4 other people and we were prepared to blame them at trial as being the real killer. Okay. But my lawyers talked me out of going forward with the trial, even though I wanted to say that other people committed this crime. And then you've got
that could really happen.
habeas.
That just to interrupt you for one quick second, that really could happen because Howard was reporting on this leading up to the trial that Ann Taylor was jumping up and down, seemingly wanting him to plead this out, and Kohlberger. There was talk about whether she'd have to like try to get him declared incompetent or do something with around his alleged autism to try to force this plea deal on him. Keep going, Phil.
Yeah, so so he can raise this issue on collateral attack on what we call a habeas kind of an appeal, and he's not essentially, I think, breaching the plea deal because he's not necessarily appealing any of the pretrial rulings made in the case. He's saying that my rights were violated today during this sentencing process because my lawyers didn't do their job. Now, I'm not saying that's the case necessarily, but that's the argument that could be made. So for the prosecutor to sit there and say for everybody's benefit, I guess, that there's just not going to be any appeal was a little bit disingenuous, and it certainly doesn't reflect the law that exists in the United States, as was correctly pointed out. And it also, just to wrap up this point, if you're going to file a motion saying to the judge, look, we want to blame 3 or 4 or 5 other people for this, and we've got some evidence of it, you better have really, really good evidence, because when that motion fails and then you're on the eve of trial and your client figures out, okay, the limelight is over, it's time to put up or shut up, and we're at the foot of the cross, you look like a fool for bringing this motion saying we've got evidence that 4 or 5 other people may have been the guilty party here. And then you just kind of immediately switch gear to admit under oath that no, this individual client did in fact commit this crime exactly as alleged. So I'm like, why do you even try to go down that road unless you've got really, really solid evidence of it?
I think it's too
Can I add to that? I'm sorry.
I think it's too kind to say you look like a fool. I mean, that's something pernicious and malicious. They put 4 names into that document. The document and the motion, it's been redacted. But someday this might very well come out. Those 4 people will be branded for life as possible suspects, possible killers, and yet the judge said there's no evidence. That was a very pernicious act on the part of Ann Taylor. I think it's unforgivable.
Well, let me add to that just one other point that you heard. A lot of people reference it. The DA referenced it. The judge referenced it.
You don't think that Ann Taylor knew that when she wrote that, what she would be implicating? Why do people think that Ann Taylor would just do something like that and risk her entire career, right? And her ethical obligations and her moral standards and for fucking somebody else? I mean, why would you ever do that? If Brian Kober wanted a plea deal, Ann Taylor could have said, yep, this is your best thing. Or she could have said, I don't think this is what's best. Okay. Or the only reason I think this is what's best is because I didn't have enough time to go through this discovery to be able to, I think, defend you the best that I could. And maybe Brian Kober's like, I want you to put that shit in writing. Okay. I want to know that you're going to say that you were ineffective and I'll take the plea deal. We have no idea what took place behind those closed doors. But do I think for a second, because I have found no evidence of any one of these defense attorneys lying based off of the discovery they've read and the requests that they were making. No evidence, not a single spec yet of 314 pages that I've read and dissected. Have I seen that Ann Taylor or anyone on her team has lied? And so why, after 2.5 years, would you then lie with your last motion to put in? Fuck, Ann Taylor could have listed, the way I look at that piece of paper or all these pieces of papers, she could have listed 15 alternate perpetrators. And I'll tell you, two of them I would have put on there is freaking one of those undercovers who's taking a picture of Kaylee's ID. I'm sorry. And then doesn't write up a report, is in the area, and then his counterpart falsifies a report. Yeah, I'd probably throw them in there. But all right, guys, thank you guys so much for joining in tonight. Wanted to hear a little bit of the mainstream talk. This was, I think, posted 5 days ago. I love how everybody has all these questions, but yet it was the biased reporting and the bullshit that was going on with people participating in leaks as to why we didn't get a trial. And now look at all the mainstream media people crying. Y'all had a hand in that shit. Dateline, mainstream media pushing a narrative versus they should be covering a case as you are innocent until proven guilty. If mainstream media would cover cases fairly before the trial starts, we would not see as many plea deals as we do. That's all. Have a good night. If you want to join me back, it's kind of late. Maybe I should just save Candace for tomorrow. I think I will. I'll save Candace for tomorrow. She's owed, because it's hilarious. Have you guys checked out these 219 fucking pages? This lawsuit is out of control. So don't take it the wrong way. I know it's insane. She calls the first lady in France over there fucking, I don't know, born a male that she's a man and so it'll be good. It'll be good. Just join tomorrow. I'll set a new time for it. We'll do a happy hour with our happy asses for Candace. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much. And make yourself known in the comment section of the video. What do you think? Will Brian Kohlberger end up appealing here in the next 38 days? What do you think? Until next time, guys.